Good morning, everyone. It's Friday, May 28th, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Kim Mo-gen. Before we begin, these are the stories we're following at the top of the hour. South Korea reported 587 new cases Friday, inching slightly down, but cluster infections of COVID-19 continue across the nation, with more sprouting from bars and singing rooms. Global vaccination efforts continue, with Germany set to start vaccinating adolescents, while Turkey is planning to expand the age of group for those eligible to 50 and above by beginning next month. And the top trade negotiators from Washington and Beijing have spoken over the phone for the very first time since President Biden took office. Details of the conversation have not been revealed, but were aimed at restarting bilateral dialogue on trade-related issues. We begin with the COVID-19 situation in South Korea. The nation reported 587 new cases Friday, inching slightly down from the past days. But concerns remain as cluster infections continue, especially from entertainment facilities. At least 200 infections have been linked to a bar in Daegu as of Thursday night. Of Friday's new cases, 571 were local and 16 were from overseas. 3 more patients have died, raising the death toll to 1,946. On the vaccination front, a total of more than 2 million people have been fully vaccinated as of this morning. From early June, Germany is going to start vaccinating adolescents against COVID-19. The decision comes as more than 40% of Germany's population have now received at least one dose. Lee Seung-jae reports.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel has announced the country's plan to offer COVID-19 vaccines to children aged 12 to 16 starting next month.
Children and adolescents can apply for a vaccination appointment after the end of deprioritization, knowing that deprioritization will generally be lifted on June 7. This can either happen at a general practitioner's practice or at a vaccination center.
She added approval from the European Medicines Agency for Pfizer-BioNTech's vaccine for children aged from 12 to 16 years should come soon. According to government figures, there are 4.1 million school children in Germany who are 12 or over. The decision comes as the country has now given at least one dose to 41.5% of the population, with 15.7% fully vaccinated. Turkey also says it will expand this age group for those eligible, as it will begin inoculating citizens 50 and above starting June 1st. The announcement by the country's health minister on Wednesday came as he revealed that Turkey has signed deals to procure 270 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines, 3 times Turkey's entire population. In South America, Chile has started allowing its citizens who have been vaccinated with at least one dose to move more freely, including permission to roam the city or exercise outdoors. Those who are vaccinated can download a pass on their smartphone. However, face masks are mandatory indoors and outdoors, and the pass is not valid during curfew from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. The bill comes as Chile exceeded 50% of fully vaccinated adults earlier this week. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has reaffirmed Washington's commitment to a diplomatic resolution to the North Korean nuclear issue. In written testimony to the U.S. House Appropriations Subcommittee on Defense Thursday, Austin said the North poses a great threat to America's regional allies and partners. He added the regime continues to develop nuclear and ballistic missiles targeting the U.S. Austin said the Pentagon will continue to mitigate the North's destabilizing and provocative behavior to maintain peace on the Korean Peninsula. China's top diplomat met with North Korea's new ambassador to China, pledging a deeper Beijing-Pyongyang alliance. Analysts point out this is particularly noteworthy as it comes less than a week after the summit between Presidents Moon and Biden in Washington. Kim Dami reports.
China's foreign minister has vowed to deepen ties with North Korea and build on decades of cooperation during talks with the regime's new ambassador to China. Echoing Wang Yi's sentiments during their meeting in Beijing Thursday, Lee Dong-nam said it was an honor to be appointed envoy at a time when bilateral relations are at a new high. The pledge comes just a few days after the summit between the leaders of South Korea and the U.S., and watchers say Beijing is keeping the Seoul-Washington alliance in check by highlighting its ties with the North. Not wearing face masks, the two met for the first time since February when Lee was appointed as succeeding Ji Jae-ryong in the first such appointment in a decade. Lee served as a North Trade Minister from 2008 to 2016 before becoming a vice premier in the regime's cabinet in 2019. Earlier in March, Chinese leader Xi Jinping and North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un exchanged letters to reaffirm their traditional alliance to address hostile forces. Kim's letter to Xi also came at a critical time as the Biden administration was expected to unveil its new North Korea policy and followed a visit to Seoul by top U.S. officials. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in says the South Korean government should maintain its expansionary fiscal policy until 2022 to aid the country's economic recovery in the wake of the pandemic. Our Hong Yu has more.
President Moon Jae-in has highlighted the importance of fiscal measures to achieve a faster economic recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. Chairing a high-level meeting Thursday between the presidential office, the government, and the ruling party to discuss the country's fiscal strategy, Moon acknowledged that there are different opinions regarding expansionary fiscal policies. But he said it is times like these when fiscal injections are needed.
확장 재정을 요구하는 의견과 재정 건전성을 중시하는 의견이 엇갈리고 있지만 적어도 내년까지는 경기의 확실한 반등과 코로나 격차 해소를 위해 확장 재정 기조를 유지할 필요가 있다고 봅니다.
Moon also said that South Korea's economy is recovering faster than other major advanced countries because the government is mobilizing its full fiscal capacity. But he added that the recovery has only come halfway.
산업의 영역에 따라 경기 회복이 불균등하고 일자리의 양극화가 뚜렷합니다. 무엇보다 일자리 사정이 어렵습니다. 지난해 2월과 비교하여 아직 30만 개의 일자리를 회복하지 못하고 있습니다.
Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi, who was at the meeting, presented plans for how to direct state budget for next year and said that he will come up with a midterm fiscal management plan for mid to long-term sustainability. Prime Minister Kim Boo-kyung pointed out the need for bold investment in research and development of domestic vaccines and stressed the need for lawmakers to improve balanced regional development measures. President Moon addressed the fierce competition around the world to take the lead after the pandemic, saying that developed countries such as the U.S. and those in the EU are speeding up their transitions into digital and green economies. They are also investing big to readjust global supply chains to be centered on themselves. In response, South Korea is expected to invest boldly in new industries and technologies, beginning with Korean New Deal policy that involves more than $143 billion of fiscal measures. Hong Yu, Arirang News.
As a prelude to the P4G summit, Seoul is hosting a series of forums on a wide range of climate-related matters. The fourth session yesterday of Green Future Week focused on reducing carbon emissions in the shipping industry. Participants discussed zero-emission vessels and bringing shipping into the digital world. Our Seo Eun-kyung reports.
Oceans, the fourth session of a week-long series of climate forums ahead of the P4G Seoul Summit, explored ways to make the shipping industry carbon neutral. In the session on Wednesday night, themed Building Back Bluer Through Oceans, the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries released its plans to reduce maritime carbon emissions.
In 2019 alone, global greenhouse gas emissions reached a new record of 59 gigatons. Out of the 59 gigatons of greenhouse gas emissions, around 1 gigaton comes from the maritime transport sector. If we hesitate to act now, greenhouse gas emissions from ships will make a quantum leap to reach the extent of 10% of global emissions by 2050.
The minister said that South Korea is determined to decarbonize the shipping industry and establish a green maritime supply chain in support of the Getting to Zero Coalition 2030, which aims to make zero-emission vessels commercially viable by 2030. In the short term, South Korea is set to expand the share of ships fueled by low-carbon energies such as LNG to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And in the medium to long term, the country aims to carry out research and development of zero-carbon technologies aimed at the full commercialization of ships running on hydrogen or ammonia. The session also suggested the digitalization of the shipping industry to help make it more environmentally friendly.
The harmonization and the standardization of digital technologies and user interfaces will support safer and more environment-friendly shipping.
The Secretary General of the International Maritime Organization, Ingitech, added that starting next month, the IMO is planning to adopt measures to cut the carbon use of all ships. Participants stressed the importance of joint action, saying that the goal of zero emissions cannot be achieved through the efforts of individual groups alone, and therefore continued cooperation is needed. 서은경, Arirang News.
We are most of the way through South Korea's Green Future Week, which are a series of talks taking place ahead of the P4G Climate Summit in Seoul. During a forum on oceans, there were discussions about ways to tackle marine pollution. Some experts say it's a global issue just as big as climate change. Lee Kyung-in reports.
The amount of plastic waste in the ocean and killing marine life could triple over the next 20 years. By 2050, experts forecast there will be more plastic in the oceans than fish unless global action happens now. And in South Korea Wednesday, local and international experts look to coordinate joint efforts to tackle marine pollution during a pre-session leading up to the P4G Seoul Summit. Among those efforts is the East Asian Seas Initiative on Clean Oceans. Led by the South Korean government, the Environmental Management for the Seas of East Asia, or PEMC, and civil society, the initiative aims to facilitate collective efforts required to fight a shared problem.
As the ocean have no apparent physical barriers, marine litter can float freely anywhere. The international community is already considering the marine litter problem as critical an issue as climate change.
To provide inspiration, a leading engineering environmental organization based in the Netherlands shared its knowledge and experience extracting plastic waste from the water. Its efforts are focused on blocking plastics from flowing into the ocean in the first place, which they say is more important than cleaning up what's already there. It has developed a so-called interceptor, a barrier belt system that concentrates and extracts plastic from rivers, which they want to deploy to the world's most polluted rivers.
1% of the world's rivers is responsible for almost 80% of all the plastic going to the ocean. So by focusing our attention on those heaviest polluting rivers, actually many of them are in Southeast Asia, we believe we can have the fastest and also the most cost-effective pathway to preventing more plastic from going into the ocean.
Other NGOs suggested a way to remove waste that's already in the ocean, upcycling. Experts stand together on one thing. These private-public efforts should be accompanied by individual actions, which of course include using less plastic. Lee Kyung-in, Arirang News.
The new U.S. Trade representative has held her first phone call with her Chinese counterpart, aiming to restart a bilateral conversation on trade-related issues. While no details were disclosed, both sides say they agreed to continue negotiations. Kim Hyo-sun reports.
The top trade negotiators of Washington and Beijing have spoken over the phone, the first call between the two since President Biden took office. Without disclosing specific details, China's foreign ministry said the talks between U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai and Chinese Vice Premier Liu He were based on mutual respect.
The two sides held candid, practical and constructive exchanges in the spirit of equality and mutual respect. The two sides agreed that developing bilateral trade is very important, exchanged views on each other's concerns, and consented to continue to maintain communication.
In a separate statement, the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative said Thai laid out the guiding principles of the Biden administration's worker-centered trade policy and raised issues of concern. Both Washington and Beijing said they agreed to continue negotiations. The conversation comes amid Washington's continued pressure on China, not only in the economic sector, but also with President Biden calling for a probe into the origin of COVID-19. Thai has been strongly urging China to start implementing the Phase 1 trade deal signed by the two countries early last year. She says Beijing needs to up its purchases of U.S. agricultural goods, manufactured products, energy, and services. Kim Hyo-san, Arirang News.
The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, said Thursday that Israel's recent attacks on Gaza may constitute war crimes. According to Bachelet, speaking at a special session of the Human Rights Council, the strikes, which killed 242 Palestinians and displaced 74,000 people, raised serious concerns of Israel's compliance with the principles of distinction and proportionality. She added that despite Israel's claims that many of the buildings destroyed were hosting armed groups or used for military purposes, no such evidence had been seen. While the UN human rights chief welcomed last week's ceasefire, she insisted the root cause of the violence must be addressed. G7 foreign ministers, along with the European Union, have condemned Belarus for arresting a dissident journalist by diverting a passenger flight on which he was traveling. In a statement Thursday, the G7 countries said they will impose further sanctions as appropriate, adding that Belarus' latest act was an, quote, attack on press freedom and civil aviation rules. They also called for the immediate and unconditional release of all individuals who have been arbitrarily detained. The statement comes after a fresh round of sanctions imposed on Belarus by EU leaders, including a ban on the country's airlines from entering the bloc's airspace.
Welcome. It's time for The World Now, bringing you some of the most interesting news from around the globe. I'm Ji-young. It's a real celebration because a giant turtle thought to have become extinct 100 years ago has been rediscovered in Galapagos. Scientists at Yale University confirmed earlier this week that the giant female tortoise found in the Galapagos Islands was a species that was last reported in 1906 and considered lost forever.
This is one of the most significant findings that the Galapagos National Park has had, and that we've been able to inform the world yesterday. It is a dream. It is a hope for a new species of tortoise in Galapagos.
The turtle was discovered 2 years ago, and to save the species, the park is currently preparing an expedition to search for more of them. Data from the Galapagos National Park says the current population of various species of giant tortoises is about 60,000. For those of you tuning in from New York, it's time to immerse yourself in Starry Night and Sunflowers. The masterpieces from renowned post-impressionist artist Vincent van Gogh have come into life at Pier 36, a 70,000 square foot facility located on Manhattan's Lower East Side. With New York easing most of its COVID-19 restrictions on businesses, the co-producer said the timing of the Van Gogh exhibition is perfect.
This artist was lonely and lived really difficult life, and we all came through the pandemic right now, and this artist was chosen to show his feelings and loneliness, but also show his wonderful, bright surroundings and feelings of sunflowers around you. So I think it's a perfect timing for us going on the tail of pandemic to see and to encourage us all to live through that loneliness and to come out healthy.
The exhibition provides history about Van Gogh and puts visitors in the middle of his work with the paintings blooming and rippling through before viewers' eyes. The visual spectacle will open to the public on June 10th. Could they be any more missed? The break is finally over, and Rachel, Ross, Joey, Monica, Chandler, and Phoebe are back. They have finally been reunited 17 years after the finale of the hugely popular U.S. sitcom Friends. Friends returned with a highly anticipated, nearly 2 hours TV reunion special that hit the HBO Max streaming service on Thursday. There were games, laughter, and certainly some tears as the cast members got back together to talk about the show, which concluded in 2004 after 10 years of airing. Some celebrity guests made a cameo, including BTS, where band member RM said the show played a big role in helping him to learn English.
Good morning. Seoul has stormy weather this morning. Rain was pouring down along with thunder, lightning, and strong gusts. And now rain clouds are heading towards the south. And when it does rain, remember it could pound down 10 to 30 millimeters in an hour, as we saw this morning in Seoul. Well, we can say the capital region and Chungcheongdo provinces saw the heaviest rain of the day. Then other regions will be seeing heavy showers through the late afternoon today. But until then, the central region as well as the Jeollabuk-do, Gyeongsang-pukto provinces could see up to 60 millimeters. But regions not receiving rain could see some bright skies, while daily highs in most parts will be similar to yesterday, getting up to 21 degrees here in the capital and in Busan. No more rain is in the forecast for the next 5 days, and it will feel more like early summer next week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that will do it for us at this hour on Arirang News. We'll be back at noon Korea time. Thank you for watching.
Three-finger salute.